The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome back to week one of 4KWins.com. This is the big show along with K4Wins out there from Las Vegas Sun in beautiful Las Vegas. He joined us there on Saturday morning. Of course, Kip Keefer, the executive director of the Birmingham Racecourse Casino. He's always the pro. He's joining us here as he wipes his eyes a little early this morning. And also, of course, Kai Gregory. He's been doing this business for 35, 40 years as well as myself. This is 4KWins.com. And this is, of course, a little show we love to put together every Saturday. Doing real well, by the way, in our first week of plays. And Kyle will be going through some of the plays we had last week. But any big surprises here going into week one? We've kind of had a soft opening case for the first couple of days of the season. But anything that's really caught your eye or anything that's kind of blown you away so far for this first week?
Yeah, well, first of all, hats off to Kai. I'm glad someone's doing well. We joke in sports betting people I talk to that if you ask how you are, you just get launched into how it's going betting-wise. And overall, it's still been good for me. I've had a winning last week, but college football, I'm 0 for 2. I've lost both days. Nothing big, but I beat the closing number, I think, in 5 of the 6 games I've bet, which is honestly, to me, if you want to get better as a bettor, that's the number one thing. You want to focus less on results and see what numbers you're getting. I've had some bad beats, some things not go my way. So I'm still optimistic. I still think it's going to be a big weekend. But yeah, not been the best start for me college football wise. And yeah, I don't know. So many takeaways. The Thursday games were fun. Man, it's pretty crazy. The Minnesota kicker, one of the best in the nation last year. The kid misses 2 short kicks.
I know, right?
That's the difference in the game. Colorado, I think I was on Colorado in that game. I know Kai was on the other side. I kind of feel like if they played it again tomorrow, I'd bet Colorado -9 again. They outgained them by 2 yards per play. They had that crazy interception in the end zone off a leg. So North Dakota State, super tough. They were better than I thought they were going to be. Still well coached. But I kind of think signs are pointing up for Colorado if they play a team that doesn't have either an explosive offense or is good up front. I don't think they're going to be great this year, but I think they are a little bit better than last year.
The big question is, can Colorado win with 50 new players every year?
I make no mistake, I'm not a Colorado guy. I think Kip and I talked. I said 10 teams could win the Big 12, and they were not one of them. I just think they're a little bit better than last year, probably.
Kai, how'd we look last week? Go ahead.
I got to throw this in. This is not really betting related, but what's up with Dion rocking the gray beard? That is hideous.
He's trying to copy me.
I still can't get over him as a pigeon in DirecTV commercials.
Yeah,
a pigeon with a hat.
Coach Prime, I think he's losing it. Anyway.
No, I think he's grabbing money wherever he can, is what he's doing right now. Kai, talk about some of the records we had, and then we'll get into some of our plays because we got a lot to get into in week one.
K4Wins.com. It's not a bad start. You know, the free picks are 7-5, a little bit, it's still up money, but not where you want to be. The pay pick year to date, 16-7, 4-1 yesterday. Only loss being the over in the UAB game. Thinking maybe that UAB's defense got maybe that extra hour and a half helped them hold Alcorn State, the powerhouse, to 3 points.
That was the unfortunate thing. That was one of my plays, and I bet the over on every game on UAB last year because they gave up 37 points a ball game. I knew they could put up 40 plus, and I knew that they were probably going to put that up again against a SWAC team. Little do you know, though, Case, whenever you're playing one of these games, when you're playing a subpar team, a team that actually won 7 games last year, and of course Alcorn State, will they put up enough points to push the total of 55? Whenever you have a line that is as big as that was, and that is 30, talk about that just briefly. When you have a line that's that big, but you also have an over-under you're trying to reach over. I saw one game, I forget what it was 36, and the over-under was 53. There's not a lot of wiggle room there.
Yeah, if you do the implied final scores, it's pretty crazy. And there are, I think, a lot of times kind of these narrative factors get overblown in college football, and they don't matter much. But one thing I totally subscribe to, and I'm hearing a lot of people pick up on and talk a little bit more about these early season games. I feel like so many of these higher level FBS teams are like going with the most vanilla playbook and holding stuff back. They don't want to put too much on film before their bigger games. So a game like UAB Alcorn, or so many games we're having this weekend where it's FBS against FCS, something you have to keep in mind when a team's laying I didn't pay attention to the UAB game last night. Sorry, I think you said they're laying 36 or whatever. They're not on your side betting wise. They don't care if they win by 40, and they're not running their full playbook. So that's one kind of deterrent to laying those big numbers. Not that I won't do it. There's certain cases where it's good, but I think that's certainly something handicap wise to keep in mind.
And I kind of weigh with the idea the UAB obviously had their first losing season since they came back in 2017, only winning 4 games. And not to say that the sea is getting hot by any stretch. I think Trent is there as long as he wants to. Dilfer, I do. Something told me that he was going to want to come out and just really waste a team that he could possibly waste on, just based on his team last year. So I was a little surprised they didn't put up 60, but needless to say, it didn't go over. Kai, we've obviously gotten a lot of plays to get into, and Kip has been on fire. As a matter of fact, we were just huge on our show on the starting lineup show. It's a great show. You can check it out, ABC 3340 here locally in Birmingham every Saturday morning from 10:30, 11 o'clock. We were 26-7 on our plays last year. I had Georgia Tech this past week. What you looking at early this week here in week 1 there, Kip?
I like a variety of games. The one I landed on the most, and half of this is based on something that Case reported because he went to Mountain West Media Days, and last week was big time on SMU because he just feels like Nevada, which out there is referred to as Reno, just doesn't have much this year in transition. They end up playing SMU really tough and only lost by 5 when they were a 20-something point dog. But now they pick up and travel all the way across the country. I think the last 80 miles by wagon train down to Troy, Alabama on Saturday night. From Reno to Troy, that's quite the itinerary. They're an 8.5-point underdog. Troy was a darn good football team last year on that secondary level, albeit. But that's, you talk about going to a place where it's going to be sort of a pit. I can't imagine Nevada traveling cross country and putting up much of a fight there, particularly with the ranks as thin as they were, and probably kind of beaten up by playing a superior opponent in SMU. I love the Troy Trojans. I'll give the 8.5 tomorrow night. That's my best bet of the week.
Case, I do want to ask you a real quick question. As a bettor, I'm always looking for weird games like Nevada's. I don't know why, because I figure that Kip really must have an inside source on something, because it's a game that's so far off the grid. It's like, why would he be picking this game as opposed to a lot of people obviously looking at the Georgia-Clemson game, which is going to be scrutinized and broken down in every which way but next Wednesday. So have you ever found that some of those smaller games are either easier or better to gamble on or bet on as opposed to some of the bigger games because they're destroyed by analytics?
Typically, yes, especially, I mean, the Troy, I mean, they're still an FBS program, so I think there's still a lot of scrutiny there, not to the level of Georgia Clemson, though. And I think as the season goes on, if you specialize in those smaller group of 5 conferences, I think it's definitely easier to find edges. I think week 1's a little different just because these games got posted May, June. They've been beaten into place for a long time. So I think it's all pretty tough this week. But in general, I think as the season goes on, that is a really good strategy. And these FCS games, I know you guys were texting me asking about there are big opportunities there. If you can you talk about analytics, and yeah, it's so widespread now. You can find so many numbers on all these top level teams. It's a lot harder to find the data on the FCS teams, and I'm guilty of it. I don't know the FCS well, but I know there's guys that the limits are going up. You're able to bet more. So if you really dive into the FCS, I think there's probably some really big edges there if you can just find a way to get money down.
It's really interesting too, because I remember teams like Liberty and Nicholls State, some of these teams that I never would have thought there would be a line on, and I'm watching some team called, is it Lindenwood or some
Lindenwood.
Lindenwood. I've never heard of Lindenwood, and I'm seeing Lindenwood all over the place for all of a sudden. I don't know if they're all of a sudden a D1 school or something. Am I going to be handicapping Lindenwood here in the next couple of weeks? All right, Case, go ahead and give me one of your big plays here for this weekend in week 1. Let's get off the schneid, get it done.
Just like that. Let's see. I bet so many games week 1, as I was saying, that they've been up forever. So I feel like I've had
how many games have you played week 1?
I need to count, but I would say easily over 20. Like I don't know if this is posting tonight, but Friday we've got 4 FBS games. I have action on 3 of them. I have all the underdogs tonight. The other game I haven't bet is Oklahoma Temple, and I kind of like Oklahoma. I just laying 42 kind of makes me cringe. So I don't know if I really get the itch. I'll get in there too, I guess. Scrolling, let's see, just throwing one random game out there. I don't know. We kind of went with the Nevada theme. I know Kip likes this game too. UNLV going to Houston. This was one, I think maybe the first game I bet all year. I bet UNLV plus 3.5 going to Houston. It's 2.5 now. I'd say a smaller bet. If it gets back to 3, I would smash it. But 2.5 especially, I would take it. Look, UNLV has been a bad program for a long time. I think some of that might still be priced into the market, but they have a really good team now under Barry Odom, the former Missouri coach. They went hard in the portal. I think this year's team's probably even better than last year's team that made the Mountain West Conference Championship. It doesn't mean everything. I know a lot of coaches think they're going to be good this time of the year, but I can tell you from some off-the-record discussions being around the program, they think they are really good this year. They think they're a playoff contender. Which on paper they are. I mean, Boise's better than them in the Mountain West, and that's it. Houston rebuilding from scratch with their new coach, Willie Fritz. I think Willie Fritz I think the world of them. I think they're going to be good eventually, but I think it's going to take some time. So UNLV plus 2.5, I'd bet smaller. If it gets back to 3, I like the Rebels a lot.
4K Wins, the show, 4kwins.com. Check out the site. We're on fire. Kip, Kai, Kurre, and K4, all 4 of us. Speaking of Kai, give me a play for this first week, week 1, man.
Well, I got to get you to start saying that correctly. We've been doing it wrong for 2 weeks now. It's K4Wins, not
K4
4K.
Wins, 4K Wins.
I know, tomato, but
but if you
went
in 4K, that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I'm winning a 4K is what I want to win. I want to win 4K.
I mean, that's the goal. But Case, I wonder in that game, the Oklahoma game, I really like Oklahoma minus 27.5 in the first half. I think you're going to get, worst case, a 35-7. Oklahoma loves to come out. They always have. I know you got Venables, a defensive guy now, but I think with this offense this year and with some of the weapons they have, them scoring even 28-0, 35, probably 42 points in the first half, something like that may give a better play in that. I really like first half bets. I like Georgia in the first half, even though, the suspensions or maybe not suspensions that are going to come, and they only may be a first half because, Kirby likes Saban, if somebody gets in trouble, they like to, I know Saban's gone, but they like to suspend them for, a play against the horrible teams that most SEC teams play in game 1 usually. I like Georgia in the first half. We talked about this a little bit before. It's kind of strange to me to see the Miami line go from 2 to Miami minus 2.5, but the money line dropped. They dropped from 40 to minus 35. So who knows something there? I like Alabama in the first half, minus 20. That Western Kentucky team, we'll see Alabama at home first half. They've been a pretty good first half team. I know it's a different coaching era and all that, but you're telling me the offensive guru, DeBoer, coming in is not going to put up points with thinking about how Jalen Milroe finished last year offensively. I think that first half minus 20 could be one of the best plays, of the day. And then Tony, I'm not going to step on your toes, but we've talked about Penn State and West Virginia as well.
Yeah, I mean, I took it as the best bet. I not only took it as my game of the week, but also my dog of the week coming up a 9-4 season, and obviously a team that just loves the ground and pound. They were number 4 last year in running the football, and again, Penn State's always had just a fantastic defense. The thing about Penn State though is, it's always about Michigan and Ohio State, and they're just the redheaded stepchild. They're always the best of the good teams, not ever the best of the best teams. Should Penn State make the Final 12 this year? They should. But again, I think the style they play in West Virginia, you've got Bennett coming back, or Garrett Green, should I say, Bennett the running back, and also got a wide receiver. All 3 of them are seniors. They're all coming back for their senior years to go lights out. And this is the West Virginia squad that everyone thought could win double-digit games. And I think they get off the schneid. They're going to avenge that loss last year when, of course, they lost 38-15 against Penn State. That'll be a remarkable game for them in their program. Enter Sandman. They're going to get it done and come within the 8.5. We'll check it out. Another interesting game I saw that was really interesting. You guys have been talking about some big numbers. Normally, I like to stay away from those because there's nothing worse than when you get a team plus 42.5 and it's 42-0 at halftime. I mean, it just sucks. And then somehow you backdoor it because the team takes all their starters off, which I absolutely love. But teams that are favored by 37.5 or more in the last 11 years since 2013 are 14-0 straight up and 14-0 against the spread. I looked at that number and I had the head scratch. I'm like, wait a minute, 37.5 or more, and they're 14-0 against the spread. Maybe Case can. And I went back and started looking at games, and it's spot on. Here's Ohio State taking on an Akron squad that plain sucks. They won 2 games last year. They only have 3 players coming back from their team. They averaged 15 points a ball game last year. I don't think they're going to be able to score. You talk about those teams that need to score in order to get games over the total. I don't think Akron's going to be putting up anything against an Ohio State defense that should be better than it was last year. And now that you got that guy across the street, Harbaugh, gone, Ryan Day, man, this is it. For me, this is the year he needs to knock off Michigan. He needs to win a national title. He's always come up a little short, shave the beard, and be done with it. But I like Ohio State minus the 49 against the Akron Zips, which I expect to put up in the point total a little bit later on. Your thoughts?
Yeah, we've seen a little bit of money on Akron too, so you're getting a little bit better price. I know that touched 51 here in Vegas earlier in the week. Now I'm seeing as low as 48. Sorry, I got my odds screen up. That's why I keep looking to the side. Just off of bragging about how many games I have bets on and all of them, I feel like you touched on 2 games I have not bet: Akron and Ohio State, and
Wow.
West Virginia, Penn State. The West Virginia Penn State game I think is among the most interesting in week 1. I honestly generally am pretty down on West Virginia. They had a great year last year, but everyone thought they were going to be terrible. And you look at the teams they beat, don't look all that great in hindsight. I think Penn State talent-wise should beat up on them, but they're breaking in 2 new coordinators, and that's always kind of a wait and see to me. And a lot of sharp money came on West Virginia. I think they opened as high as maybe 12.5 or 13 in June, so it's been nothing but West Virginia money so far. That's
normally, real quick before you move on, because I know this moves fast. Normally, if you're going to go get an offensive coordinator, you don't go to Kansas to get him. That was a kind of a strange thing for Franklin to do, who I think is really, really good. They didn't bring him in to come in second or third in the Big Ten.
Yeah, I really like the hire, to be honest. Andy Koltnicki, I think he's one of the best offensive minds in the game, but maybe it doesn't work necessarily at Penn State. He's always had a really mobile quarterback. I mean, Kansas's offense has been really innovative and really good if you've watched the last couple of years, but it's been with Jalen Daniels and Jason Bean, who's the best NFL preseason passer this year. I don't know, Drew Aller, who I think still has a lot of talent, a little bit different. So we'll just see how it fits. It might be a little clunky to start.
Case, before we get a couple more plays, Case, of course, the Case has been out there, Las Vegas Sun, for years and years. Does fantastic work. One of the best handicappers in the business. Kai Gregory, of course, from SBS, does wonderful work as well. And there is Kip Keefer, who's executive director of the Birmingham Racecourse Casino. And, of course, I've been doing radio for 40 years. Well, when you talk about that 8.5 line, that is just a real funky looking line. You just don't see 8s. You don't see 15s a lot. Yeah, sometimes you see 22s and 23s. And obviously, because there's a cusp line there, right? There's that 20, 21 or 7.5 or 6.5, whatever. But just based on trends alone and how long you've been doing this for 12, 13, 14, 15, 36 plus years. I don't even know if you're 30. I don't even know if you're 36 years of age. It just seems like you've been doing it that long. You've won enough to win for 36 years.
He's been hearing about it for 36 years, but he hasn't actually been picking games for the. Well, he picked games when he was in first grade, though.
Did he really?
Oh, he was already very aware.
Was that his math class? He was handicapping football games instead of doing 2 plus 2?
I'm sure he was doing that on the side, but he was very aware of the betting market. Fell in love with Las Vegas when he was a small boy, and now look where he is.
What do you see based on trends alone when you see that weird 15, that 8.5 point line? Because obviously it's too much to buy down. It's not enough to buy up. What do you see anything in those?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't make me lean one way or the other. I mean, maybe more the underdog. Just the reason why you see it land here sometimes is these big groups that are kind of shaping the market and betting, $100,000 or 6 figures a game, getting down as much as they can. They have numbers that they want to attack. If they're on the underdog, they want better than 7. They want better than 10. And like I said, Penn State was there for a lot of the summer. And then a lot of times you're not going to get the buyback on the favorite like Penn State. Once it crosses 10, I mean, I don't see anyone that's betting a whole lot of money betting anything lower than 7. So now we're kind of waiting for it to get to 7 to see if someone with a lot of money has a strong opinion on Penn State on either side. So nothing I necessarily take from a handicapping perspective. It's just, to me, when it's kind of in one of those dead zones, which you absolutely said was correct, like 4.5, 5 is another one. To me, it's just waiting. Okay, is there enough public action to drive this up to the next key number to see if there's someone on the other side that thinks strongly the other way? And it is kind of interesting when there is no resistance, when you just see one of these numbers blow. Like if this closes 7 after being at 13 in the summer, that just tells you everyone with a strong opinion is on West Virginia. I don't really recommend taking +7 when you could have gotten +12.5 or +13, but it is an indicator in that way.
If they don't win, I'm never listening to John Denver again. K4Wins.com. K4Wins.com is the website. What else does anyone else? Anything else kind of glaring out here in week one? And what I realize, because it's kind of easy to handicap those Thursday and Friday games, right? Because there's just not that many of them. And then all of a sudden you're scrolling page after page after page after page. It's almost like one of the Saturdays during college basketball season where there's just too much to look at. But so many games to look at. Anything else kind of catching your eye, guys?
Well, let me just pose kind of an unusual scenario here, because I tend to be more Case crunches numbers. I'm not sure what Kai's procedure is, but I look at matchups and apply kind of the same thing. I've been more of a horse racing bettor all my life, and kind of come up with scenarios on how to play certain races based on sort of a common sense approach, throwing out a lot of the biases and other things. And I've got to say, from a common sense standpoint, I am absolutely stunned that both Georgia Tech and Florida State are coming right back this week after playing in Ireland last Saturday, and they're both at home this weekend, and they're both gigantic favorites. Georgia Tech plays Georgia State. Those campuses are literally a mile and a half apart. This is a game that means so much more to Georgia State than it does to Georgia Tech, because they're the ones who feel like they're the small school disrespected. They're catching 20.5. I know their team is not very good coming back. They've lost a lot of their offensive components from last year, but this has become a decent program. And for Tech to come back from Ireland off the huge win against Florida State and give somebody 3 touchdowns when they only have to travel 1 mile to the stadium for the game, just common sense tells me that Georgia State is the play there, and that might be totally off base, but I'm taking Georgia State plus 20.5. And in kind of a parlay scenario, I will watch that game carefully, because if Tech does manage to cover, Boston College is at Florida State on Monday night. They're a 16.5-point dog. Florida State wounded after losing. You'd think they come out spitting nails at home and blow Boston College out. But again, that international travel thing, most of the NFL teams get a bye week after playing in Ireland, or in England, I should say. And these teams are right back in action. So just from a common sense standpoint, I'm going to pretty much guarantee one of those teams does not cover this weekend, given that kind of points, and kind of just play it by ear. If Georgia Tech does cover, then I would get down on Boston College for Monday night. But I like both the dogs there, just because of the circumstances.
Guys, something you always look at too whenever you see the big letdown, where you see that from Georgia Tech, and obviously a squad that should not have won that ball game as a 10-point dog. But I always look at teams that have huge emotional wins one week and then see what they do the next week. Are they still hungover?
I don't like either one of those games at all. I'm not going to place a single wager on them. I don't like them, because of the travel. To answer Kip's question, I like looking in the trenches, whether it's NFL or college football. That's where I like to look the majority of the time, and that's where I like to get the lineups. Just like last night, I just thought North Dakota State would be able to push Colorado around. Now, Colorado did a little bit better than I thought they were going to do, especially with those 2 long drives in the second half, which kind of hurt. Our free play was the over on Colorado, over 34.5. It lost, the strange interception, and there were some other strange things, in that game. But, one of the games I'm looking at, and I don't know why, because the trenches don't say it, I like Hawaii tomorrow night. I like them playing against UCLA, getting 14 points at home. And then to Case's point, UCLA next week travels, I think next week, back across the country in their new strange division they're in. So I'll be interested to see that matchup next week as well for UCLA.
Several of those old Pac-12 teams I saw, they're traveling more than 17,000 miles being in the Big Ten this season. They're having to just go all over the place. And you have to, you're going to need a charter flight for that, but 17,000 miles in one season is pretty rough. Anybody got anything else that is glaring their eye, Case?
Yeah, I'm on Hawaii plus 14 too. Obviously, they didn't look great last week. So they didn't give us a great vote of confidence, but I know they're one of those teams that fits the description I said earlier, that we're holding a lot back. UCLA, Kai's right, going to be better in the trenches. And I do think there's a big edge in there in college football. The trenches are so much more important. I mean, once you get to the NFL, all these guys are world class. So I think there's less of a betting edge there. I think the pass rush matters. In college and the NFL, but the NFL, I look more at pass rushes than just straight the trenches. But UCLA, I mean, they had one of the best defensive lines in the country last year. Lautu, I think, of course, was the second defensive player taken off the board. They had another defensive lineman drafted. So I know they're still going to out-talent Hawaii and be bigger up there. But I don't know if it's going to be to the same extent as last year. So I just got to hope that last week was an anomaly, not overreact to it, and stick with Hawaii plus 14. I just quickly want to respond to some other things you guys were talking about. Kip said he thinks one of the two underdogs is going to cover. I sure hope it's Boston College. Just a way to think about these things and kind of what legalized gambling has made available for us. A lot of these books don't take down the numbers. So last week during the first half, when Florida State looked awful and was getting pushed around, I bet Boston College plus 21. Now it's 16 and a half. I honestly think now there might be value on Florida State. I'll probably just let my bet ride. I know some people are obsessed with middling, and I am in the right situation if it's for a lot of money, but this is just a normal sized bet for me. But I am on Boston College plus 21. And situationally, I agree with the Georgia Tech, Georgia State thing, but man, Georgia State, it seems like a disaster right now. Sean Elliott, I thought, was a good coach. He'd done pretty good things there the last couple of years. He bailed after spring football. He bailed to go, I think he's South Carolina's either DC or linebacker coach now. So that tells you he saw this team at spring football and said, oh, no, I'm out of here. He bailed. I know they hired Del McGee, one of 40 guys on Georgia's staff, who's probably knows a thing or two and maybe long-term is going to be good. But to me, if I was betting that game, even despite the travel and everything else, I haven't bet it, but I would lean Georgia Tech minus 20 and a half. I think there will be a chance to bet against Georgia Tech here coming up in the future. I just don't necessarily think it's this week. And last thing I want to respond to, I know Kai was talking about this. I actually like Florida in the Miami game, but if you do like Miami, I think Kai had a good point on the money line. In a lot of these recreational books, the money line and the spread haven't moved in accordance with each other. I will say I checked out the line movement at the two biggest books in Vegas that take the biggest action, Circa and Westgate. They both have moved. So I think some of these big college football week 1 games are a lot like the Super Bowl when you're getting a lot of these recreational money. And some people see the underdog and they'd rather just take the money line. So I think some of these recreational books that aren't taking, the real professional action might be moving, a little bit more with their exposure. I will say the best number I see is minus 135. When you can lay 2.5 with Miami, I'd probably want it to get to minus 130. But if you like Miami and a minus 130 becomes available, even though I'm on Florida myself, I think Miami minus 130 on the money line with where the market isn't a bad bet.
Kip, Kai, Kurre, and K4, we're the real deal. We're going to do the show every single week. Make sure you check us out. Subscribe to our, of course, YouTube channel. It is K4Wins. K4Wins. Just pull it up, K4Wins, our YouTube channel, K4Wins.com. You can see all of our numbers and all of our plays documented from week to week, and we're planning on having another fantastic year. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Till next week, go college football and enjoy the games.
Going to be awesome.
Have a good one.
Thanks.
Go Vols.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.